Welcome back, everybody, to this week's edition of Headlines and Beyond. I'm Dr. Dan Karras for iNN News, or actually iNN. It is the edition week 1.3. It's the weekend edition for 2015, and we have an interesting topic for today. And this is Islam, what the public doesn't know. There's an enormous amount that is missing, enormous amount of information that is missing from mainstream media. Like most people, when you go to watch the news, most of the people they trust what's going on in the news. But the problem is that most people won't go and actually research and see what's actually happening if the news is real or not. If what's being said to them is actually true. There is no such discernment in watching the news. Most people, when they watch the news, they're sitting feet up, mind in neutral, and it's kind of a relaxing thing for them. It's sort of a way to pass some time. But here it's a little different. It is a little more complex. We do go into a lot of analysis, and there is a fair bit more meat here in terms of the content. And I offer this. I'm going to answer questions that are in comments that are posted in the comments here in the videos. And this is what I'll be doing here again today. There's another one from Albert Zereit. I think it's Zereit. I'm not gonna try to guess how to pronounce it. That's my attempt at this. And then the research is not necessarily an easy thing to do. It is more complex. But he asks it, and this is where I want to sort of backtrack a little bit here and sort of get my words fixed up a little bit more, a little more thought to it. When you read a comment, sometimes we tend to read the first few sentences and then assume the rest. And that's a very dangerous thing to do because, and I do this as well myself, my initial intention is simply to read the first thing and then, base my conclusions, my views off of what I initially see. And this is the case here. It says the person here is from Guadalajara, Mexico. And he's tired about the inherited culture from Spain, which is good. And he talks about animal abuse, and they talk about, bullfighting and so on and so forth. And my mind goes out and says, well, maybe this is a person who's talking about animal rights. And the thing is that I can sort of start seeing that he might be a little bit on the left here. And so my mind kind of goes off a little bit and sort of say, well, yeah, okay, let's take this guy serious, but not too seriously. But as I read the second part, the last part of it, he's talking about how and I'm going to call him indigenous American, but the thing is, because Europeans have been part of the American history now, and I'm talking about the continental American history for so long, they are now indigenous. There's no difference between the natives and the Americans of European descent. There shouldn't be a dividing line, but yet there is. There is a dividing line, and a lot of the times these dividing lines are who is elected, who are the leaders of society, and who aren't. And he's complaining about this whole situation with both the politicians in South America, and they're primarily European, while the people who are poor are primarily they're Americans of American descent. They're not of European descent. And he talks about they're hedonists, they're racist, lack of humanitarianism. And the thing is, he wants awareness and assistance. But the thing is, awareness isn't going to change anything, and assistance is kind of difficult to do because unless you are willing to lead a revolution down there, and that's part of the problem, is that so many people want to lead revolutions down there, that the place is never stabilized. And the thing is, a lot of the European leaders who are still fairly much, pretty much colonialist, they're still colonialists. They still believe in Europe, the European Empire. And they view the Americas as their colony. I mean, the United States is in a different situation than the rest of North America, the rest of the Americas, simply because the people of America, the United States, revolted against their colonial leaders and insisted on an independent system that allowed an individual freedom. But the system that was chosen in South America and in Canada was a socialist system. It was a compromise between the crown and the local governments here. So it's not a completely free system here. People, Canadians, we hear Canadians talking about free speech. Well, I hate to break it to them, but Canadians don't have free speech. They have privileged speech. It's speech that is allowed by the government. Canadians do not have free speech. Matter of fact, they do not have a lot of the democratic freedoms that they assume that they have. And this is embedded in the charter. It's need to understand that the charter came from the crown. Initially, we were up until 1985. Canadians were subjects of the British Crown, and when Trudeau brought the Canadian Constitution over here, he sort of said, "Well, we're going to have our own independent Canada." What he did is he created a socialist system. Instead of giving the rights and freedoms to the individual, to the average citizen, he kept the freedoms and the rights and privileges, the charter for himself, for the government. And so he created a socialist system where the government replaces the monarch. So keep a monarchical system where you have a colonial system, where you have a system of serfs and slaves, and replace that monarchy with an elected government. And that's what you have with socialism. And this is exactly what you see in Canada. This is exactly what you see in South America. And so this is also the case what you see in Guadalajara, in Mexico. A large chunk of the problem that's in Mexico is that individual Mexicans do not have individual rights because they never had individual rights. This is something that was uniquely American. I'm talking the United States of America, not America as the continent, but America as the country. And this is one thing you need to understand. There are two Americas. There is America the continent, there's North and South America, and then there's America the continent. America the country. And America the country had initially chosen to go its own way to give the average citizen freedom. Of course, that didn't initially happen. It happened for a few people, and it evolved from that point on out. But right now, if you look at the United States right now, the United States is actually pedaling backwards from its independent stance of independence, and is moving towards the European model of socialism. This is what Obama represents. Obama represents the European view of democracy, that democracy should be the government in charge and everyone else following the government, and that is how the leadership should be. And this is the way it is in South America. Mexico is no exception here. And so what happens, the people at the top are always the politicians. They're the ones who have most of the money. They're the ones who are in charge. They're the ones who have the authority. And of course, they look down on everybody else. Everybody else is there to serve them. They're not there to serve the people. The people are there to serve them. And this is their right. This is their privilege, because this is where they exist in. And I think this whole concept of colonialism is all over us. Even the United States has caught the bug. Colonialism is no longer representative of American ideals. America, the country, is no longer a representative of the American ideal of individualism and freedom. As I said before, I'm not a socialist. I'm not on either side, on the right or the left. I'm an individualist, and that's the American ideal. The American ideal is the individualist ideal, where everybody has their own individual rights. It's the individual right that supersedes the right of the government. This includes the state. This includes the mayor, the city government. This includes the state government. This includes the federal government. The individual right supersedes these particular rights. The only time the government really should be stepping in is in the matter of grave legal issues, such as murder, rape, and so on and so forth, where violence is being done to somebody else. This is where the law should be stepping in. And the only place that the law should be stepping in. But this is not the reality. This is sort of where my view is. This is where a number of people who have the same views as mine, they're in this view as well. They are individualists. They are not socialists. They don't belong to any particular party. They believe in individual rights. But the situation right now is you have colonialism taking center stage. And this is even true for the United States. I'd say it is particularly true for the United States because the United States is actually leading the charge in colonialism. And this is why I talk about the Democrats. I put the term humanitarian. I put a little asterisk at the end of humanitarian, noting that this is the way Democrats do a lot of things. Democrats will state something, and then they'll have to restate it to tell you what they really mean. And because we're doing a lot of restatement of the Quran, restatement of the Torah, via the Talmud, we put this asterisk in there to say that we're going to be restating what humanitarian is. And so humanitarian Democrat is really an imperialist. There are people who believe that the government should be replacing the crown, should have the rights and authority of the crown, and that everybody else is below them to be served by them and to be appreciative of the gifts that are given, particularly when privileges like being able to eat is given. And the thing is, this is no different than what you find in the Talmud, and it's no different what you find in the Quran. You'll find this sort of imperialism in these two theologies. In many cases, imperialism evolves from a theology, and even to a certain degree, the European socialist system, which is imperial by nature, even though it doesn't have a god, its theology is atheist, and because it's atheist, it does indeed have a theology at its base, and it has what can be loosely defined as a morality. But we'll see later on, as we go into our second half, how this is actually indeed false. That yes, it does technically have a morality, but when you sit down and look at what the morality actually is, and that's why I say, it's a warped sense of morality. And so we have a couple titles here that we can also use, called the American Empire, Freedom for a Few. And this part 2 is the Talmud and the Quran. We're doing our second analysis on this, but we can also look at how basically Europe and the European ideas, this includes the United States, have become fundamentally insane. That we're living primarily in an insane asylum. And the thing is that we expect from the Republicans, because they don't make any bones about being elitists, we expect the Republicans to be high-handed. We expect them to be self-righteous, and we expect them to be warmongers. The Democrats are the ones who label themselves as humanitarians, and we sort of say, okay, well, you're a humanitarian, okay, so why are you doing this regime change on a global basis, much larger than the United States, than the Republicans ever did? I mean, if you look at the history of the Democrats, it's the Democrats who had more regime changes and conflict going on than the Republicans did. And this is sort of true from Truman on up. This has been the case. And so the thing is, if you're a humanitarian, why then, as a humanitarian, do you have more of these so-called police acting, these regime changes, than the Republicans do? And the thing is, that's where you have to come in, look at what the definition of humanitarianism is in relation to in how the Democrats actually define it. And so we come back, we take a look, we look at what's going on in the news, and we see all this whole stuff about Muslims bombing this and Muslims bombing that, and And they always talk about how you have this jihad is here blowing up this, and this jihad is blowing up that. And that's as far as it goes. But I often ask the question, well, what's going on at the heart of Islam? What's causing this problem? And so I decided to take a look at it. And there's actually a lot more there than is ever brought out in the news. And most public don't know about what's going on. So that's what we're going to get into when we come back. We're going to look at how Islam actually plays into geopolitics and how it is a factor in geopolitics when we come back.
iNN, uncut, unedited, and real. We deal with issues that other networks won't.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on the other side of our break, And as I said, we're going to get into some of the details on how Islam actually breaks down and becomes a factor within global politics. Now, one would assume, given the hype surrounding the issue with Iran, that Iran is at the center of most of this jihadist activity. And this is certainly people's opinion, that Iran is the key player behind a lot of this this revolutionary activity. But if you sat down and began to learn about Islam, you'll learn that there's two different types of Islam, two fundamental types of Islam. There's Sunni and then there's Shia. The Shia Islam are fundamentally different from the Sunni Islam. The Sunni Islam are very radical. They're very intolerant, and they believe in violence. They believe in attacking those who are wrong. They have this whole view of being self-righteous, that they are there to correct the mistakes of others and to prevent the sins and corruption that are of others from spreading to the rest of the innocent world. This is their particular point of view. And to do this, they need to execute and get rid of all those undesirables. And if you know your history, and I certainly recommend that to understand this point better, you need to go and read two books. These are two books, and they'll be in the description down below on your reading list. The reading list for these next few weeks is going to be George Orwell's 1984. I encourage you to read all of George Orwell's work, but particularly read 1984 and Machiavelli's The Prince. These two books basically sum up most of the geopolitics that we're seeing today. Now, mind you, they were written in 1930s and before, so they weren't written for this modern era. But the politics, the way the politics plays out, certainly does apply, and should make for an interesting read in comparison to what's going on here. And the thing is, the way I say this is because I sat down to see who the Sunnis were, and I sat down to see who the Shia were, and I didn't go to critical sites. I went to, and this is what I tend to do. I don't go to secondary sources. This is what, in other words, somebody telling me about what something is. So I go to a Christian site and I see what Islam is all about, and they tell me what all Islam is all about. Well, no, you can't really do that because this is, a secondhand information. This is from somebody who is against Islam. I want to know from a Muslim person or a Muslim scholar, an Islamic scholar, what Islam is about. And that's what I went and did. On the internet, you can go and find a number of Islamic scholarship, a number of Islamic scholar sites, and you can do a fair amount of perusing. You can read through them. They have full libraries online. There's an enormous amount there to read, study, and research. And I did that. I found that there are more than just the two Sunni and Shia, but the two fundamentals, the two largest groups, and everybody else sort of takes and borrows from a combination of Sunni or Shia, and the rest of the groups. But so the two fundamentals are Sunni and Shia. Shia make up the majority of Iranians. They're primarily Iranians. They're not Arabs. They're Persians. Just remember, that Iran is Persia. It is not Saudi Arabia. And the Saudi Arabians and that area, that's Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of the caliphates are all Sunni. When I went to check to see, when we look at, we see the violence between Sunni and Shia. We see the Sunni attacking the Shia in most cases here. So you go look in Indonesia. We remember all of the bombings in Indonesia that allowed Indonesia to become Muslim, because now Indonesia is the primarily Muslim state, and they forced a lot of Indonesians to become Muslim. Who are the Indonesians? They're Sunni. That's Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. Malaysia, Sunni. Thailand, is the group that's trying to create a breakaway state from Thailand. They've so far since 2004, in 10 years, right? In 10 years, from 2004 to 2014, this is December 2014. There is now more than 6,000 people dead from routine bombings by the Sunni jihadists. So when I went to take a look and I asked the question, well, Afghanistan, who are the Afghani? Are they Sunni or are they Shia? The Afghanis are primarily Sunni Shia. The Taliban, they're Sunni Shia. Al-Qaeda, Sunni Shia. ISIS, Sunni Shia. Sunni Islam. So if you see most of the stuff, you see everything here is all Sunni Islam rather than being Shia Islam. Then we really realize is that the connection to all these revolutions, this includes Bosnia, which is also Sunni. They're all connected to Saudi Arabia. They're all connected to the United Arab Emirates or Kuwait in that area there. Who are the people who control that area? The United States and Europe. Primarily, Britain. This is the colonial empire. And what was in the colonial empire? Oil. So we could say, well, what does oil have to do with Indonesia? What does oil have to do with Malaysia? What does oil have to do with Thailand? There's oil there. You didn't know that? Yeah. In Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, there's oil. This is where World.Shell is. World.Shell got its start in these jungle oil countries. In the middle of the Chinese Sea. In the Asian Pacific realm. This is where it got part of the large chunk of its start. World.Shell also got its start in the East European fields, oil fields near Baku, and it stretches all the way into it goes all the way from Bosnia, from Yugoslavia, from the western tip of Yugoslavia. It goes all the way into the Ukraine, and then further, I think northeast into Azerbaijan. So this is sort of, when you're looking at what's going on in the world today, the politics that's going on in the world today, is not a new politics. It's old geopolitics rearing its ugly head again. And what's happening here is the jihadists are very easily motivated to do evil, to be revolutionaries. And what's happening is what you saw in Big Brother. You saw the state always going in and creating wars and creating states in order to keep the state fixated on the external problems rather than looking at the internal problems. And this is how a fascist dictatorship ends up working out. The fascist dictatorship needs wars outside the system in order to pull the country as a nation together. This is particularly what's going on in the United States. When you're seeing all this stuff about these terrorist activities, the people funding the terrorists, who are primarily Sunni, are the Americans. When you see 9/11, you're seeing the invisible hand of the United States. When you're seeing the Boston bombing, you're seeing the invisible hand of the United States. You say, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, no, it's not. It's history. It's in the book 1984. It's in the book The Prince. If you sit down and start doing some of the reading, you'll find that it's there, and you'll find that it's not a conspiracy. It is not this whole concept of a conspiracy theory where there's one group of people all locked in a room together going, you know, like you see on, what was it, the Austin Powers, you know, the Mike Myers movies. They don't have, there isn't the quintessential villain at the center of this whole thing. What it is a lot of individual power groups vying for control and power. And they will stab each other in the back. The Bilderberg group is not a love-dove get-together. This is a Shark Tank. And they're looking for weaknesses. They're looking for ways to knock the other person off. And this is what Bilderberg is. Bilderberg is more of a sizing up of the opponent. And the opponent is anyone who is not you. If you want to be king, if you want to be the king of the castle, you want to be the top, then it is you who needs to take control of everything. And this is the function of Bilderberg. Bilderberg is, they look at where they can work together and knock off opponents that don't really matter, who aren't there. And then at the same time, they're also looking to see, in the same interest, who else they can pair up with to knock the other person off. It's like if you watch the reality TV show Big Brother and a lot of these other reality shows where they have people making and breaking secret alliances. Well, this is what's going on in Bilderberg. Bilderberg is this, but it happens more on a global scale, and the consequences are more global as well. And so what happens is you look at what's going on. This is where I particularly was interested in just looking at this, and it was sort of saying, putting up some of these sort of the commentary in the newspaper and in the even some of these blogs who have really clearly sold out. I went to Politico, I went to news.com. There's a whole variety of them out there. And well, I don't know exactly where I found it from. I didn't write down the link for it. But they were talking about the events going on in Thailand, particularly the southern region of Thailand. And they're Sunnis, and they're trying to create a breakaway strip. And it said, since 2004, there's more than 6,000 people dead. And it says, who's there in the Muslim South there that are causing that causes all this? And it says, well, there's these Muslim guys that are coming from Malaysia. They're primarily foreigners coming in, and they're there. This is where all the bars are. These are the infamous bars, the type, where you can buy any girl, no matter what age she is, off the street. And then these things are on a regular basis, and it's not American men who are going to Thailand. American men are in Thailand, but they're more in the northern part. But they're also abusing girls there as well. They're also into child abuse as well. But these are the Muslims here who are not supposed to be doing what they're doing. But what happens is that the Muslim morality code has a loophole in it. As long as you do a bare minimum, which is basically say your prayers, say Allah's the only God around, and that's basically it. Do your fasting at Ramadan, and you're saved. It guarantees your salvation. So do these minimum three or four things, and you're guaranteed entry into heaven. So it doesn't matter what you're doing to the kids over there. It doesn't matter who you're molesting or whatever. As long as you do your bare minimum, then you're all right. All these sins are forgiven. Even though you have no intention of giving them up. But the thing is that, but interests me in this whole thing here that the attacks in Thailand, and because it is dated December 27, 2014, this is going on while you have in major newspaper talking about the lone wolf attacks in the Sydney Cafe and in France. The driver who drove around shouting Allah Akbar and running over people. These are so-called lone attacks become the norm. But well, no. As I said before, while you had these lone attacks going on, these lone wolf attack going on, You also had a bombing in an Afghanistan school. You had a bombing in the Pakistan school. Now the report is there's a total of 142 people dead, 142 kids dead in this attack. I mean, this is something that, you know, we start questioning what we're seeing in the newspaper. If you start sort of organizing something, getting all the information together, then not everything makes sense. And this is where you start beginning, hey, wait a minute here. Maybe the news isn't telling us the truth. Maybe there are things that are missing in the news that should be in the news. But the thing is, at the same time, if this is your conclusion that you've come to, then you need to step forward and start doing a lot more work, because there's a lot more to this than really meets the eye. And this includes going out and doing your reading, which, as I said, the reading list for today, for this week, is George Orwell's 1984 and Machiavelli's The Prince. I said I'm going to leave a note in the description below so you can find these books. You can find them online probably for free. And read them. And you'll see that a lot of this matches up. And I said, look at the dates these were published. And you will find that this whole concept of the Western Europe, of empire building, is not something new. It's not, what we're seeing in so-called conspiracy theory. It's actually empire building. It's standard empire building. It was interrupted by the atomic bomb, because the atomic bomb ended how major wars could be fought. Before the atomic bomb, you could go in and wipe out a whole city, no problem. Wasn't much of an issue. Now you can't do that with the atomic bomb, because as soon as you start using the nuclear weapons, as soon as the war goes nuclear, goes hot, a nuclear weapon is not a strategic weapon. You can't win with a nuclear weapon. It's a suicide weapon. It's a weapon that wipes everybody out, including yourself. So there is no use of it. Is the ultimate weapon in that you can't use it, and because it can't use it, you can't fight your wars anymore. So now all wars have to be covert. They have to be cold wars. And this is why black ops now are the primary forces. The primary forces now are black ops, special ops, psyops. These are the primary tools and weapons of war now. And when we get back, we're going to go to a break right now. When we come back on another break, we're going to get into the evils of psychology. We're going to see how this evolves and how it manifests itself in we call the standards of morality, which is theology. All right, on the other side.
iNN, uncut, unedited, and real. We deal with issues that other networks won't.
Welcome back. We're on the other side of our break, and the thing is that we're looking at what's been happening lately in the news. We're talking about how there's a lot about Islam that's not known about, and what's going on, particularly with the TSA and stuff like that. And the TSA, it goes into a lot of, it has to do a lot to do with morality, has a lot to do with psychology of evil. We had talked about the Stanford University experiment, and we talked about how the Stanford University experiment is linked to the police abuse, how you can sort of look and see what's going on with the police abuse, and we can see this in the Stanford University experiment, that this is not a new phenomenon. That this is a phenomenon, the result of a systematic problem. It's not a racial problem. It's the way the system works. It's got to be fundamentally changed. And so this is not a race issue. This is a police abuse issue. Yes, there are black people who got abused, but there's also a lot of other people who get abused by the system as well. And the case in point comes to us from recent reports on the TSA, how we have people who have been reporting on the TSA, what's going on in the TSA. And this is the Transportation Safety Administration. These are the people who do the checks at the airport. And they've been patting down 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, babies. checking diapers for explosives and stuff like that. And it's fundamentally absurd. I mean, even the people themselves, the TSA officers who've left the field, have said what's going on is completely crazy. But then this is what's happened. When you give up morality, when you give up your theology to a certain degree, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. This is what happened with atheism. Atheism, you give up your theology. Once you give up your theology, you make your morals arbitrary. They can be whatever you want to be, whenever you feel like it. And the result is fundamentally an insane asylum. Nothing really seems to make sense because you do what you want because you feel like it. And there are people on TSA there who have this authority complex. This is what you see from the Stanford University experiment. But more than this, you have something now, and another experiment that went on in psychology relating to the Nazis. And this is the Stanley Milgaard experiment. The Stanley Milgaard experiment was designed to see how far a low-level employee like the TSA, a TSA officer, can be pushed into doing things that are very sadistic to another person, an innocent person, at the insistence of an authority figure, like the TSA, the higher-ups in the TSA. Higher-ups in the TSA say, start harassing these people, make their lives miserable. And they pick the people who are most likely to create problems, who are most likely to abuse their authority. This is the standard. When they give a standard psychology test to find out who they want for the TSA, they want people who will really bother somebody else. They're not going to be nice. They're going to be very mean. They're going to be very nasty. They have a chip on their shoulder. If they don't like your attitude, they will search you. They will if you don't like if they don't like your attitude in terms of you're upset about something. Not even that, you're just upset that you're in the line like this. You're tired. They'll go out of their way to make your life even more miserable than it was before. Just to sort of they want to teach you a lesson. This is what the TSA is looking for, and this is what was in this Stanley Milgaard experiment. And this is what we're talking about now, how morality matters, and that when morality disappears, or when morality is compromised, and this happens with theology. Theology often provides loopholes in morality that allow bad behavior to become common and normal. And this is why I say theology does matter, because theology is what morality is seated in. And once morality is seated in a theology that creates loopholes, like the Talmud does in Judaism, then it creates loopholes in the morality that allow abnormal behavior or hurtful or harmful behavior to come forward and become normal. And this is what we see in the sex abuse issues within the Jewish Orthodox community. And this is known in Brooklyn. This is known in Israel. There are a number of Israeli sex abuse groups that are trying to stop this, but they're not having, I guess you call it, any luck getting anywhere with this, because the people who are abusing the kids have a lot of power. And this is what the way it usually is. The child abusers who have power, the pedophiles who have power, never pay the price until they die. Then they pay the price. But the people at the top who abuse children never pay the price. They never caught it. They're never called out. And all you have to do, in case in point, is Michael Jackson. He had the pictures that he had in his quote-unquote special room included pictures of babies. In his special room, which had, this is where they found a lot of his pornography, which included young boys. Imagine having in that same room pictures of baby. You can imagine what he was doing to the pictures of babies. This is the sickness, and there's no other word for it, the sickness of Michael Jackson. But you'll never see this in the news anymore. Michael Jackson now is worshipped. He is an icon, a cultural icon that represents Hollywood, and they will never tarnish that image. He is the king of pop. I mean, of course, you have a following in his line. There's Madonna, and now, of course, Miley Cyrus is aiming to go down the same route that Madonna and what's his name, Michael Jackson went down. And of course, you see her behavior there. Oh, this is what it is. It is adult. It is stripping. It is pornographic, and it's disgusting. But they don't see it like this. They see this as normal. People who are sexualized, people who behave in this manner, see this as normal. And I think it's to a certain degree, if a person is talking about the sex workers, the prostitutes, what happens after a certain period of time, the abuse doesn't seem abnormal anymore. They don't like the abuse. But they don't know anything else. And because the abuse is what they always experience, the abuse becomes normal to them. And it's very difficult once the person is past a certain age to pull them out. Because the abuse has become so ingrained, it's become so normal, it's extremely difficult to pull them out of where they are. And so I wanted to see, I wanted to see, okay, I know Islam had the Quran, but I didn't know what else they had, because the Quran basically reads much like the Torah does. It's basically their holy book, their Bible. And the Quran, as I was reading through their sites, says that the Quran was dictated by God to Muhammad, so it is the word of God, not of Muhammad. So okay, yeah. And they also said that they respect and that and actually in the Quran and who believe in the Quran and the Sunnah, which is sent down to you, Muhammad, and in the Torah and in the Gospel, etc., which were sent down before you, and they believe with certainty in the hereafter, right? They talk about salvation. So in the Quran, it mentions both the Torah and the Gospel, talking about heaven and hell, talking about good deeds and bad deeds, talking about salvation and damnation. And so what happens is one can join the Quran to not only the Torah, but now he can join it to the Talmud and a number of other different documents as well. But the problem is, when you go back to the Gospel, you need to remember there was more than one Gospel. And in addition, there was more than one Bible as well. There was more than one Torah. The Torah was not one book. There was a variety of different Torahs out there. And the Torah you have today is more of a compilation of a variety of different Torahs. And the Gospel is, depending on which Gospel you're reading, again, you don't know exactly what you're reading sometimes. And you have to go back and be careful, because not everything you're reading is exactly right. So I wanted to go find the equivalent of the Talmud to the Quran, and I actually found it was actually the Sunnah and the Hadith, are actually the equivalent to the Talmud, is the practice and the law. And in this, you see that the bare minimum that a Muslim must do in order to believe, the bare minimum that a Muslim must do and believe in order to be rest assured of his or her salvation is quite simple. And so they give you a whole set of things here. They basically simply say that what you have to do is you have to believe, Orthodox rabbinical law. They say that's our base here. We believe in that. They believe in some of the Christian text, basically the Gospel. You have to do your prayers. You have to do believe in the one God, and you have to do your fasting, and that's it. That's your bare minimum to be saved. And the thing is that just in the way I said, we talked about the Talmud and how the Talmud alters and adjusts the Bible, particularly Leviticus, because Leviticus is where the law comes from. And both the Quran, both Islam and Judaism, they're both legalistic. They're both centered around law and jurisprudence. And what you have here is I've got to go through some of my notes here and sort of get a better feel for this, because there's still an enormous amount that has to be sort of consolidated to bring it out on a better basis. And so I'm going to skip through some of the stuff that I have here, simply for time's sake. And the thing is, their views of heaven and hell are quite different, including the fact that they were exposed to, because the Quran didn't come to around mid 600 AD, so it was well after Judaism was well established. Judaism got established primarily around 300 AD, because it was wiped out at the time of Christ. It was wiped out. It was destroyed by the Roman army. By the end of the first century AD, there were no more Jews in Jerusalem. They had been expelled from Jerusalem, from all of Israel actually, and everything was burnt and destroyed. So what you see is that you see Judaism reforming, and I'm not reforming in terms of changing itself, but coming back together again over a period of about 300 years, from just about I would say about 80 AD to about 300 AD. There was a reformation of Judaism, and all that ended up with the reformation of Judaism, it went from a full class of Levites, Kohanes, the priests. In other words, you had a whole series of hierarchical structure with Judaism. And what came out of Judaism at 300 AD was rabbinical Judaism. In other words, the rabbis, the Pharisees, retained control, and then everything else was destroyed. Everything else became part and underneath the rabbinical Judaism. And it's from here that Islam, around 700 AD, takes off. But it also, because of where Iran is situated, where the Middle East is situated, it had a lot of contact with India. So you also have a lot of Hinduism creeping into Islam as well. And this is where the jinns come from. The jinns are your demons. They're your creatures that provide and create magic on Earth. And the thing is, this is where Satan is. Satan is not an angel. He's not considered a fallen angel in Islam. He's a jinn. He's a genie. And jinn is a genie. They're one and the same thing here. But the thing is, what happens here is that the way they view these things is that they view the things that they're the caliphs and the imams are infallible, that you have to do what they say or else, that you, without question. This is where the Sunni Shia came up. The Sunni Islam came from. The Shia Islam are more. They were exposed to a lot of the philosophy of the East. This includes the Greek philosophers, and their work is more philosophical. They're not as hard line as the Sunnis are. The Sunnis took the hard line. The Shia took the more philosophical line. When we come back, we're going to get into some more of this. There's still a lot here to really sort of distill and sort of think through, and yeah, I'm having a hard time with it because there is so much here. I can do good to distill this a lot better. But this is how this works. We are here to learn. We're here to explore. We're here to understand. Anyways, on the other side.
iNN, uncut, unedited, and real. We deal with issues that other networks won't.
Welcome back, everybody. We're back on our fourth and final segment here. I was talking about how with the Sharia law, you can be under Sharia law. Now, Sharia law comes from the Sunnah and the Hadith. That's your practice in your law. Sharia comes from there. The Sharia law states basically that that you have to do certain things, that there are certain punishments for various different things. And this is where you actually end up having the Sunnis taking a literal approach and not having any leniencies, but the Shia, who are more philosophical, actually do have leniencies. But both sides will state that as long as you do your bare minimum, the basic rudimentary for Islam, and this is one here. I have it down here. Have it in a second place here. It's a worship God, right, without worshiping anything else along Him. Offer the 5 daily prescribed prayers. Pay the compulsory alms. In other words, they have a tax, a sin tax, or a if you want to call it an indulgence, if you will. And then at the end, the last one is fast the month of Ramadan. The thing is that when the Sunnis came along, and it ended up that Saudi Arabia became the center of Islam, and it wasn't initially the center of Islam. You have a change in that now instead of having 4 practices, you have 5 practices. You still have the 5 prescribed prayers. You still have the almsgiving, and you still have Ramadan. The two additions is one a half addition. The half addition is yes, you're worth nothing but God, but that Muhammad is God's messenger. In other words, this is a reaffirming of Muhammad. Muhammad is God's messenger, and of course now, number 5 is you have the Hajj, and this is to Mecca. These are your 5 basics in order to ensure your salvation. It doesn't matter what you do. You can rape anyone. You can murder people. Anything's fine, because now you've got an out. Do your basic minimum, your basics here, and again, you're not repenting for what you've done wrong. That's your 5 minimum right there, and you're saved. And of course, in here you have that whole thing that they believe that the caliphs and the caliphs are kings, and the imams are infallible, so they're automatically saved. They can do anything they want to do, and they're all right. Let's say you want to have multiple wives, no problem for that. Let's say you don't want to have multiple wives. Well, you do have multiple wives anyways, but you still want to go and have a good time. The way around, and this is what happens in ISIS. If you're wondering what's going on in ISIS and how the girls are being raped in ISIS, say, "Wow, that's horrible." They're not really Muslims like this, and a lot of apologists and Islam apologists will come and say, "Well, this isn't in the Quran." Well, it is, because in the Quran and in the Sunnah and the Hadith, there is the thing called temporary marriage, and this is actually what's going on in with ISIS. The girls will come in, they'll bring a whole bunch of girls in, and they'll auction them off to various different men by lot, and a temporary marriage contract is written up. So things are done legally within the confines of the Sharia law, as long as there is an imam who is approving this. No other mom can come into somebody else's area and say, "Oh, sorry, imam, what you're doing is wrong." Remember, the imam is infallible. He's always right. So as long as you have an imam and a caliph approving of the temporary marriage, no problem. You now have a loophole in your morality that says, "Oh, you can't rape people, you can't molest people, you can't have sex outside of marriage." Well, you're not having sex outside of marriage. We have a temporary marriage here. And then this reads in many cases a lot what you see in the Talmud. Well, yes, well, when they say, you note that where they say this is what you can't, man shall not sleep with mankind as with womankind. But no, that doesn't mean that a man can't sleep with a boy or a girl, or a woman can't sleep with, And then they go, a woman can't sleep with a child, a boy or a girl, because boys and girls are not men and women. No, they're not old enough yet. And so there it is. It says women. It says man. It doesn't say boy or girl. And of course, it doesn't also say beast, so you can actually have sex with a beast. And the thing is that this is where you get these so-called loopholes in theology loopholes in theology that provide you loopholes in morality. And once you have these loopholes in morality, then you can start bringing forth some of these very horrific things that we're seeing, and call them normal. And this is what I said. We're not even going to go into the morality really much, going into the morality of the West, which is primarily atheistic, because they've done away with morality. The morality in the West, for atheistic societies, is summed up in one simple phrase: it's all good. If you hear people talking about it's all good, well, they actually mean that. Well, of course, it's all good until something bad happens to them. But their standard catchphrase, it's all good. And with this catchphrase, it's all good, and that everything is mythological, and human beings don't have souls. We're all just basic animals. We're functions of neurochemical impulses. And we see in the news here, because in Ontario, we have a premier who is basically a pedophile, and she's interested with another pedophile from the U of T by the name of, what's his name? Benjamin Levin. Interested in bringing in a sex education program that basically sexualizes children from the age of 6 or 7 years old on up. And the thing is that people are freaking out about that because, they don't want their kids teaching them sex. But the thing is if you read the context of what people are talking about, the people who oppose this, a large chunk of the information of what's actually wrong with it, the morality part, is gone. It's not there. Part of the problem is that one of the groups is a Catholic group, and of course the Catholics can't say anything about child molestation and pedophilia because of the whole Vatican issue. I mean, the Vatican knew what was. There's no way the Vatican didn't know what was going on during its child abuse scandals. It chose to sweep it under the rug. And the thing is, the papacy has its own loopholes in this, along with the Calvinists, who were the slave traders. These Calvinists were the Protestant slave traders. They have their loopholes that got around all these different things, just the way the Muslims and the Jews do. They all have loopholes in their theology that get them out of the morality, the duties and the morality. So what happens here is you have a lot of these groups here, that were supposed to be saying, oh, this is wrong, but hey, we've got an exception to the rule. And then, of course, you've got a pedophile premier who comes up and says, well, I've done away with the rules because I'm an atheist. And then what do you say? What do you say to the person? And then, of course, even if they knock this down, they're still coming up with other things now. If you watch on CNN, you watch any of the major shows now, they're talking about transgendered children. But the problem is people go, oh yeah, it's transgender children. It's such a shame. But wait, again, this is where you got to think of the narrative. Didn't they finish telling us how that there is no soul, that man was evolved from apes, that we are biological and neurochemical? Well, in neurochemical and biology, there is no transgender. Transgender is simply a concept. So how is a concept of transgenderness reality? Why is it such an issue? Nobody has stopped to question this. ABC, Barbara Walters, all these talk, they go on and on about this, but nobody has stopped and said, we were told the science is there is no soul. We are neurochemical processes. The brain is a neurochemical machine. It functions on neurochemistry. The body functions based on the neurochemistry on biochemistry and organic chemistry. You can go to any organic chemist textbook, take the organic chemistry, and then start applying it to the human body. It works. That's some of the research that I do. I do organic chemistry in the human body. I do it as a doctor, as a medical doctor. That's part of my research. And I know from the medical research, I know from the organic chemistry research, and from the neurochemical research, that there is a distinction in the chemistry between males and females. I also know that when you have the gender reassignment surgery, that the chemistry does not change. As a matter of fact, even though they can't change the chemistry, they suppress some of the chemistry with using hormone therapy in order to create an appearance of gender change. In other words, the gender reassignment surgery is cosmetic at best. It does not change the underlying or the fundamental chemistry of males and females. That's your biological gender. But they're not saying this here. They're talking about feeling the gender. How do you feel a gender if your standard, as you state it was, as we all hear in the news, this is why they don't want to teach creationism in school. Everybody has time to accept reality that man has evolved from apes. Right? This is what we hear, right? This is the argument you hear from a lot of the atheists and from a lot of people now in the sciences. You got to, why is religion so rigid? Why is it so, closed-minded and ignorant and so on and so forth? It's time to accept reality that man has evolved from apes. Okay? This is the science. This is what's in the science textbooks. This is the science view of things. Now, all of a sudden, we're saying, no. Concept is what dictates reality. Ideas dictate reality. In other words, if you think you're a man, but you're a woman, then you're a man. If you're a man, and I think I'm a woman, I'm a woman. If I want to put it this way, if I am who I am, if I think I'm a dog, then I'm a dog. I'm not me, Daniel, Dr. Karras. I'm a dog, Dr. Daniel Karras. I'm here, woof woof. Is this reality? Is this the science that was taught before? Is this now the new scientific standard? And the answer is no, it's not. But once again, when the society simply accepts what they're told as patent truth and don't question, and in journalism, we're skeptics. We don't accept things as they're given to us. We have hard questions that we need. Really, okay? These are hard and fast journalists. Where are their questions? And this is not being mean. Where's the science on this? If you stated the science is we're neurochemical beings, we're neurochemical functions. This is the function of the brain. There is no mind. It is a function of the brain. And the brain's chemistry does not change from male to female during gender reassignment. And there is a distinct male and female chemistry. Then where is transgenderedness? Where is this whole transgender thing? Where is I feel like a man. I feel like a woman. I feel like a boy. Where is all this stuff? And why should we simply accept it? Because this is what you say we should accept. Anyways, I leave you with these questions. I leave you with these thoughts. I will leave more descriptions, my links in the below. I'll also leave the links to what I had in the last week below. Ask your politician that, if you're on, because if you're in these other states and you have these things going on in the United States, as I said, Ontario is a standard for what's going on. There's this guy here, Garfield Dunlop. He's a conservative. Ask him why he, a conservative, supports a liberal idea. There's Monty McNaughton. He's running for the leadership of the progressive conservatives in Ontario. Ask him, he doesn't support this stuff. Ask him why he doesn't support the sex education program in Ontario. Ask him about transgenderness, what he thinks about this. In other words, start questioning, start asking questions. See what their answers are. Compare, look, study. And that's it. Go back to, and you've got to do some reading on this. This is the reading list for today, the reading list for this week anyways, is George Orwell's 1984 and Machiavelli's The Prince. Anyways, I'll be back next week, again, once a week here, because midweek is my Christmas. It's the Old Christmas. So anyone celebrating Old Christmas, these are the Eastern Orthodox people. These are the Eastern Christians, not the Western Christians. There is two different Christian churches. There's a European Christian church, and there's an Eastern Christian church. The Eastern Christian church still follows the traditional Christmas on January 7th, and we also have our traditional New Year's on January 13th and 14th. So that's also midweek. So for the next 2 weeks here, anyways, we're going to be on a weekly basis. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Kalakli Stuyana, and I can't remember what it is for, well, Chonyapala for New Year's, for St. Basil's Day. Anyways, I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the library, and I am the librarian.
I am the professor. And professor of what? Professor of physics.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Free speech rules here at Democratic Earth.